Good morning, guys. It's Drew here. It's my first blog of 2016. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday and you have a happy and prosperous new year. So I want to kind of get into it. I don't mean to start this off on a very negative note, but I will say this. I have just noticed over the past few weeks, I used to debate with millennials and, people in my age group. I'm 30 years old. I'm on the older end of the millennial spectrum, so I still have the influence from the Generation Xers and the baby boomers, and I still know right from wrong. I'm not utterly confused and just completely hopeless when it comes to intelligence, like some of the people in our age group. But in any case, I didn't want to start this kind of 2016 video blog on something negative, but I've just been seeing over the week and over the days of my holiday when I had time to check out social media, I've just been seeing how utterly confused about everything that millennials are. I mean, they're just confused about everything. I mean, from politics to, the way to look at life to money, to economics, to psychology, everything. My generation is just utterly confused about everything. And it all stems from the fact that in general, we have the wrong attitude. I'll tell you why that is. You see, my parents were extremely strict raising me. Even though we grew up with a lot of resources and I had a great upbringing economically, my parents were extremely strict. I mean super strict. I mean, like, my father was almost like Joe Jackson crazy. Almost. I'm saying. He was like so strict. We used to fear our parents, we used to have a healthy fear of our parents, and we used to kind of just respect our elders by default. I mean, we used to kind of have this thing where also not everybody was a winner. You had to actually strive to win. You had to strive to stand out. You had to strive for attention and praise. You had to actually do something to expect any kind of extra attention, praise, and support. But these days, my generation, it just seems that like we're the generation of everybody gets a trophy, and so that logic and that mentality and the mentality of coddling this generation has made my generation weak. We don't even have survival instincts anymore. Like, we take everything for granted, and it's just so it's crazy to me, and don't get me wrong, I think family time is super important. I think traveling is super important. I think all that stuff is great. I think spending time with your family is wonderful. I think vacation time is great. I think supporting people who need support is wonderful. But at this point, we've arrived at a point in society where, like, there's a such thing as trigger words, and there's a such thing as offending people to the point where they can't even function in society. There's a such thing as people going on social media and living their life vicariously through social media. They think that they've done something because they accumulate likes or they accumulate followers. They think they have done something because they accumulate views, or they think they've done something because they were in this publication or they are on that website or this website, but they don't actually do anything. They don't actually generate any profit. They don't actually generate anything. They don't actually do anything, and that's the problem. That's the problem with my generation. My generation doesn't know how to measure their results accurately. They just don't. They don't know how to do it. I know so many people from my generation who I thought were going to be so successful, and they weren't, not because of any other reason, but because they just lost track of how to appropriately measure their results. And instead of measuring their results the same way that they always have, and the same reliable way, they've taken over the media's way of measuring results, which is completely abstract. They don't measure results in terms of how much money you make anymore, or how much success your children have in school, or there's no competitiveness anymore. Everybody is just like, everybody is on this, like, they pretend to be enlightened while they live at home with their parents. They live at home with their parents. They don't achieve anything financially. They can't grow economically. They're not doing anything really for themselves and for other people, but they think that because they're on Facebook and because they shared a charitable page that they did something. They think that because they got a couple of likes on a post that they've done something, and they're just completely manipulated by media. They don't realize that you have to actually get up in the morning, wake up every morning and work towards your goal. there's a lot of people out there in my generation that think, you know, traveling and posting it on Facebook or posting it on Twitter and getting a bunch of likes on it is equivalent to starting a $1 million company. Or they think it's equivalent to starting a multi-billion dollar company. You know, my generation is just totally confused, and they're just looking for like the next thing to get a pat on the back for, because they don't have any self-esteem or self-respect. And I think maybe it's wrong of me to blanket generalize my entire generation, but it's just what I see. I think my generation is stupid, and they think everybody should get a trophy just for participating. You know, they think everybody should get success just for showing up to the office. You know, they think everybody should get paid for just being there, and it's just, or everybody should be rewarded for just being there. And that's not the way I grew up. My parents kind of raised me to be competitive. They if I wasn't doing my best, I always felt some kind of way about it, because I felt guilty about it, because they let me know it wasn't the right thing to do. You know, you're wasting your life if you're not doing your best, if you're not trying your best. They raised me to be competitive. They raised me to think in that way. And maybe it's not all about money, and it's not all about being competitive economically, you know, but on another note too, I always try to be the best brother I can be. I try to be the best, you know, the best boyfriend I can be to my girl, you know, soon to be the best husband, obviously. You know, I always try to be the best I can be to my, you know, circle. I try to be the best chief operating officer I can be to my CEO. I try to be the best at what I do almost all the time. I try, you know, and I just feel like that's lost among our generation. I feel like our generation is too caught up in the feelings, and they're just too focused on their feels. They're too focused on their safe spaces and their trigger words, and my generation is just so self-absorbed that they cannot see the bigger picture in things. Like, I just wonder how the older generations did things. Like, the older generations, they would walk miles to school. They were tough, man. They didn't have, like, there's so many opportunities out there for my generation, and it's just sad that, like, a large percentage of my generation thinks that they are activists. They spend a lot of their time sharing racially charged media on Facebook or Twitter, and debating on Facebook or Twitter about racially charged issues. They spend a lot of time complaining about rich versus poor, complaining about money. They spend a lot of time complaining about the environment. My generation spends a lot of time complaining, but not a lot of time doing. And I guess you could say, oh, hey, but Drew, you're doing the same exact thing with your video blogs. What you guys don't realize is that, like, I'm part of an organization that does millions of dollars in charity on a daily basis. You know, obviously, like I said before, I don't do the whole million, but I do my part. You know, I'm a chief operating officer at an organization that does, at a business that does charity. And also the business that I'm part of, I help build from the ground up, and it does millions of dollars in volume. You know, so I'm just saying that, like, my generation has to realize you have to actually do things too. You can't just talk about them on social media, or just show up in a magazine, or just be, you know, publicized somewhere and think that it means that you're doing something. That's not what you measure. There's ways to measure effects: money raised, lives affected, things like that. You know, and I feel like that's lost upon my generation, because my generation would rather feel good about something than actually really do it. My generation will not struggle to actually get to where they want to go, because they'd rather feel good about something than actually really go out there and actually achieve it through the struggle that's necessary to make any achievement possible. And it's sad, but that's just what it is. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful, I guess, rest of your New Year's. It's back to work for me, back to the grind. My first video blog of the new year. Take care. I'll be doing another video blog later on, and have a wonderful day.